I'm learning how to draw faces. And in this video, I'm going to cover why I wanted to learn this, what's working for me, what hasn't, and some reflections on how it's going so far and where I want to take it next. So, let's jump into it. Hello, my name is Jade, and I like to paint with pixels. So while I'm chatting, I thought it would be nice to do some portrait studies in the background, and I will link each of the photos that I'm using in the description if you would like to give this a go too. I thought the best place to start would be to explain why I've wanted to learn how to draw portraits in the first place. And the main reason being that I've always loved the idea of creating my own characters, both just general OCs, but also to be able to bring the characters I create in my D&D sessions to life in a different way from playing as them or writing about them. I think it's because I'm a visual learner, but having a visual reference for these characters would be so useful. And if I could make those myself, that'd be really cool. I also wanted to challenge myself to improve my art, and I feel like portraits are both a really difficult subject to get the hang of, but also really rewarding and can help you practice some of the art fundamentals that can be used in art that isn't portraits. This isn't the first time I've tried to learn how to draw faces. I've tried this multiple times in the past, but my last attempt was about a year and a half ago, and I actually streamed it all on Twitch, and it was a weekly practice that I did to learn sort of the basics, and I did weekly posts on Instagram to log the progress that I made somewhere. I named it Pixel Portrait Practice because your girl loves a bit of alliteration, and I'm probably going to keep using it for this round as well because it's fun to say. This only lasted for a few weeks, about a couple months, and I think there were a few reasons for why I stopped. The biggest one, I think, was that I was putting a lot of pressure on making the practice interesting while I was streaming it and sharing, because for a lot of artsy skills, things that you want to learn how to draw and improve on, you have to practice, and you have to practice a lot, which can be really repetitive, but that's almost a good thing in a way and kind of the point, because you're trying to build that muscle memory for particular techniques and how to draw certain things. But I think the way that I was going about it was making me really overwhelmed on how to keep it interesting while streaming, and I think that kind of deterred me a bit from the process. I think also spacing out time to practice as if it was a big session, about 2 hours or so, 2.5 hours every week, rather than doing a little bit each day, made it quite difficult to make progress as well. I think this is because I would almost feel like I'm sort of playing catch up to where I was the week before, because I didn't really do anything in between those two practices. So it would almost feel like I was playing catch up from where I was the week before for like the first 30 minutes to an hour, so it felt like progress was really slow, and that felt a bit discouraging as well. But from this, it feels like it's a good segue into what is working for me now and what I'm currently doing to learn how to draw faces. At the moment, I'm using the week daily practice that I've put together for myself, and I've made portraits the main subject that I'm focusing on. I'm trying to keep to the same constraints that I had as before, so around 30 minutes each day on a 100 by 100 canvas and with a limited color palette. And I wanted to shout out a suggestion that was made on my 100 Days of Doodles video about a method for practicing portrait studies. And Alizard, who is a wonderful pixel artist, you should check them out on Instagram, I'll leave a link down below, but they suggested blocking out the main shapes and the silhouette of the person and then refining it from there, so it sort of turns into sculpting out the face instead. And before, I had posted a couple of studies at this point, mainly of the outline of each of the subjects, but once I tried this method, I saw a massive improvement when I stopped worrying about the line art as the first initial step. I think this is because the resolution of my pieces is still quite small, especially in comparison to non-pixel art, digital art, or even traditional art really. But because every pixel has a way bigger impact on the piece, it sort of felt like I was working on the details a bit too soon when I would work on the line art first. So focusing on the main shapes definitely helped me work on proportions of the face, and though I don't have it down perfectly yet, I'm definitely seeing progress with it, and that always feels really good. I should probably preface that the way that I'm doing it currently probably isn't the most efficient way to learn how to draw faces, but for me, currently it's the most fun and enjoyable way, which matters the most to me at the moment. And I'm not trying to sort of set a deadline with, like, I need to learn how to draw faces by this date. It's just something that I can do at my own pace. And I think making sure that that is enjoyable is priority number one, at least for me at the moment. And I think it's definitely showing because I've stuck to it a lot more than I have for any other attempt that I've had to do this. And I think there's a couple reasons why I feel like I'm sticking to it more this time than I have in previous times. The first point is that I've already established a drawing habit, so it feels like an easier transition to just shift the focus of each of those drawings each weekday. I'm keeping to the same constraints that I know work for me to keep it a regular practice, so that's really helped keep with the consistency because it's already constraints that I know I can work to, and I have done for a while now. And also not being too strict on how I study, because I want some structure with it, but not something where I don't want to work on it because I'm not feeling like I want to stick to that structure or what I have already set out to draw for the day. And similar to that, having fun experimenting with each of these studies and just trying something new and just like slightly different from the last. And even if it doesn't work out, that's okay, because I'm just kind of, it's nice to give myself the space to just experiment and kind of have fun with it, rather than having a strict, I have to copy this portrait pixel for pixel, which is kind of impossible anyways because I'm working with less pixels, but you get the idea. So far, I'm really enjoying this process, which is something that I never thought I would say about drawing faces. I avoided them for so long, and it feels nice to sort of chip away at that fear that I've had for drawing faces. And I know that I drew one hand here, but hands are a completely other story, and we'll get back to her, but that's for future me to figure out. So, what I want to do in the future is definitely do more focus studies on particular aspects of the face, trying different face angles, and just the general anatomy of a face. I found that making these studies has helped a ton because it sort of sets a benchmark for where I'm at now, and it helps me highlight the key aspects that I want to improve on the most. And I think at the moment that is keeping the face proportionate at different angles, especially like extreme angles, like side-on views and like more than 3/4 views, and also figuring out how to do more expressive faces, because when I've looked at studies that have sort of smile lines because they're grinning so big, I don't know how best to incorporate them, so I tend to avoid it, and then it doesn't feel like it captures the expression as well. And when I do try to add them, I feel like I'm adding an extra 30 years onto the subject, which I feel really bad about. So I think I need to play around more with how I'm approaching that, and and make some studies around subjects with bigger expressions as well. Sort of linked to this, I'd like to play around with colors and outlines more. I feel like I've started to do this in more recent portraits, and especially on the color front, because I've been sort of taking a singular color and doing sort of monochrome portraits at the moment. So it's at a very basic level, but I took the approach of not going immediately into realistic colors, as I thought it would be way too intimidating to sort of add that layer on top of learning how to draw faces in the first place. And I think that was one of the reasons why I was put off in the past, because I wanted to try and make the portraits as realistic as possible. But I think using one color at the moment is working well for me at the moment, and it gives them a bit more of like a pop art feel. And I really like the idea of not going completely realistic with the lighting and to keep it to simplified shapes, because I think that plays into the strengths of pixel art quite well. And I'd love to take more inspiration from how comics apply shading and lighting, and also line art in general, but shading with like halftones and thicker line art I think is something that I want to experiment with. I'm just not quite sure how to incorporate it yet. I gave it a go with one of the pieces and I actually quite liked the result, especially the gradient with the dithering. I think that captures the sort of halftone aspect that I really like about comics, especially the gradient on the dithering, because I feel like that captures what I like about the halftone effect that's used in comics. But I think it'll be a matter of experimenting with it more and just trying it out on different studies. A thing I struggle with at the moment is that my color palette isn't big enough to add line art and also add in this extra dithering gradient without it blending into the original base colors. So I'm debating whether to add more colors or shift to a more simplified approach, but like I say, much more experimenting to do. The last thing I would love to do in future studies is more studies of the same photo reference, but reinterpreting the subject at different angles to help me understand how to sort of represent the likeness of a person, not just from the photo reference, but if you saw that reference with the sketches that I did and the head tilting from different angles, I'd want it to be so that you could see the similarities between the two, even though it's not exactly the original pose that they're doing. I'd love to incorporate this into my week daily studies too, and do a similar setup to what I have in this video, where there's a couple studies on one page. I don't know, there's something really appealing to how it looks. Maybe because you can see the progression all in one page. I don't know. Anyways, I realized that trying to do all of this in one go for each week daily doodle would be too much for me. And I know that keeping up with it would probably lead to the road of burnout for sure. But I've been thinking about maybe adjusting it so that each portrait for that week is part of sort of a bigger piece and a bigger study, and then at the end of the week we can sort of zoom out and see how it's been built on each day. And I think that could be really nice to see the final piece at the end of the week and yeah, see the progress that we made. But with that, I think that is all for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know which of the 3 studies is your favorite, and if you've ever wanted to draw portraits, or if you're like me now and you're starting to learn how to draw portraits. I'd love to know. I will post a big ol' sketchbook tour after I've done a few more of these, but if you want to follow along as I draw these each weekday, you can check out my Instagram. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care out there. Goodbye.